You're watching the best. Fox 10 News at 5 starts now.
Thanks for joining us. One person is dead after a private jet lost a landing gear today on the runway and then careened into a business jet closing Scottsdale Airport.
Fox 10's Steve Nielsen is on the scene tonight with the latest details. Steve, at the news conference that happened about 30 minutes ago, they said someone was still inside. They were trying to get out, right?
Yes, and using Scottsdale Fire's terminology here, they just described that person as a soul aboard. Scottsdale Fire didn't answer any questions. They just tried to get as much information out as possible in about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then they had to go back to the scene, continue to work it right now. They still categorize this, obviously, as an active scene. As we take a look, you'll see why. The thing that has just changed here in the last 5 minutes, before we were seeing these live pictures, the two tails of the planes were pretty much right next to each other after they collided. They were able to just tow or drive or pull one of those planes, the one on the left, away. So now we're just seeing that one plane there. The reason they're doing all of this is because they're still trying to get that soul off board one of the planes. They said that person was still stuck inside. The terminology, they're trying to save that person there. That was what we heard from Scottsdale Fire. What they have told us so far here from the FAA about the mechanics of how this crash took place is that as one of these planes was landing, they veered off of the runway and collided with another plane. Let's listen in to Scottsdale Fire again just a short time ago in their news conference, their brief update with us, what they were able to tell us about how they're trying to handle this recovery as it's happening.
I can tell you that we have 5 souls, 1 DOA, 2 immediates that have been transported to local trauma centers, 1 delayed stable to a local hospital, and this is a still active scene. We're still working on extricating 1 soul out of one of the airplanes.
That was Captain Dave Folio with Scottsdale Fire. He went on to describe that soul still aboard one of the planes as they were trying to still save that person. That was what was said later on in the news conference. To describe some of the other terminology that was used there, DOA, that means dead on arrival. 1 person has lost their life here. 2 of them immediately taken to the hospital. That means they have very serious injuries. 1 of them delayed, still injured. Typically in a situation like that, it wouldn't be a life-threatening injury. Just to describe what's going on, I will tell you this. There is a smell of fuel in the air here. We're not that close to where this scene is. I mean, we've got a little bit of pavement between us, and we can absolutely still smell that. Something else you can see here away from these planes is landing gear on the runway. We talked with one witness, a man who actually says he owned the plane that crashed a number of years ago. He's in airplane sales, and he sold that plane back in 2005. He witnessed the crash happened. He said that there was an issue with the landing gear during the landing, that the landing gear collapsed. Let's listen to him describe what took place.
Saw the Lear 35 coming down with the left main gear collapsed and the nose gear partially collapsed, and watched it slide off the runway from center of the runway to the left. And we knew, based on the speed, that it's heading towards the building or something over here. So we left the office and came over to see what happened and back to the Gulfstream 200.
And back live to the scene here out in Scottsdale. I will tell you this, when we first arrived, we arrived shortly after this crash. We were nearby. We saw Scottsdale firefighters running with jaws of life towards the plane, and then later on coming back with those jaws of life from the plane. Quite a large response here. Immediately called out as a first alarm response. We have Phoenix Fire here, Scottsdale Fire here, Glendale Fire here. That's just what we can see from our vantage point here at the Scottsdale Airport. Obviously, a lot of questions still remain about this scene. All we have heard so far from Scottsdale Fire authorities was, again, about that minute and a half long press conference just a short time ago. They said they hope to update us with more information within the next hour. If we get anything new, of course, we'll provide it to you.
Steve, one of the positive outcomes of this, if there is one, there was no fire, which is a miracle.
You're absolutely right. And I think that that's often one of the concerns you see when fire crews are responding here is they want to make sure they're not doing anything that could potentially spark a fire. I can smell that there is fuel out there right now. Our cameras captured what appeared to be a little bit of fuel out there too. As far as how much was leaking or anything like that, I'll leave that to authorities to sort of parse all of that verbiage out and that language out. But enough fuel out there to certainly be a concern. And yeah, you can't have something like that then spark a fire. I'll tell you this too. I was talking to some of the employees in these buildings here. They were evacuated when this took place as well. So there was concerns about that.
Steve, are you getting the feeling that the person still trapped in that wreckage is alive?
I don't want to speculate on that. What I can say is that they just pulled that plane away about 5 minutes ago. They have been working at this scene. The verbiage we heard from Dave Folio, the Scottsdale fire captain there, was that they were trying to save that person. So at this point, that's the goal. They've moved these fire trucks here, sort of blocking our vantage point of what's happening and looking at, so we can't really tell the intensity at which these fire crews are responding to it, if they're trying to pull that person out immediately, if there's a lot of those measures, or if they're trying to be more cautious with it. We just don't know.
And Steve, just for the timeline for people at home, this all happened around 2:30, is that right? Or when did the call come in?
I believe they said it was 2:49 that call came in, and Scottsdale Fire has firefighters that are here at the airport. They responded within 1 minute of the crash happening, according to Folio. They were here immediately. We've heard from several of the witnesses out here on that immediate response that they did believe they potentially saw a little bit of smoke, but that never turned into anything. So I don't know if maybe that was water or just sort of debris flying. We just don't really know. This is one of those breaking news scenes where you have a lot of people at a Scottsdale Air Park like this. A lot of people saw different things, and you try to parse together what's going on, which is why we only got a 1.5-minute long news conference there. They want to come out, provide the basic details there, then get all their ducks in a row, come back in an hour or two and really nail it down.
Sure. Okay, Steve, thank you for that. Outcry over President Trump's immigration policies tonight. State Democrats say Republicans are pushing to expand the federal government's ability to deport immigrants by using local law enforcement.
But as Fox 10's Ashley Rodriguez reports, these deportations are targeted with a specific purpose. Ashley.
Yeah, so the feds say that collaboration with local law enforcement is always welcome. It always helps. But they add that these agents aren't going into homes and dragging out mothers and their children. They're going after bad guys, guys with serious criminal history, the same guys that many of these immigrants are fleeing from in their homeland. Press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office proudly announces in big, bold letters the Justice Department has arrested hundreds of undocumented immigrants, with 565 people being charged in Arizona in just the past 2 weeks. It's news like that that scares state Democrats and their base, who rallied in front of the state capitol Monday.
Cities and states should instead focus on serving their own residents instead of working for ICE and advancing Trump's cruel, inhumane mass deportation agenda. There's no room for it in Arizona.
But according to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the deportations are not en masse.
We're doing the same work we've been doing the last 4 years.
What's changed under President Trump is a new surge in funding and resources that allows ICE and Border Patrol to spend more time targeting the big fish, the bad actors, and the serious criminals.
Most aliens, if you look at all the stats, they're committing crime at a lower rate than the United States citizens. But for those few who are here abusing the American dream, we need to protect the rest of the community from them.
People like Edwin Santiago Marquez Flores, recently arrested in Arizona for making over $1 million helping to inhumanely smuggle 1,000 people into the U.S. while selling 50 firearms and cocaine while he was at it. Or Alfonso Garcia Vega. He snuck into the country and racked up a criminal history including DUIs, assault, and drug trafficking. He was deported, but then snuck in again. Now the U.S. Attorney admits the bulk of the 500 arrests are people who are caught in real time crossing the border illegally. But they're not the priority, nor are the families just looking for a better life. Democrats, though, are skeptical and don't trust Trump.
Instead, we should be passing legislation that helps asylum seekers and immigrants have a clear pathway to citizenship in the United States.
And look, look, it's not like undocumented immigrants don't have anything to be afraid of. The U.S. attorney told me that at some point they're going to be able to arrest most, if not all, of the criminal undocumented immigrants. And when they arrest and deport all of them, who knows who they're going to go after next. But at this point in time, right now, these raids are targeting criminal aliens. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
Ashley, thank you. Tonight on Fox 10 Investigates, how the state's Medicaid scandal may have compounded the homelessness crisis in the Valley.
Arizona continues to see an increase in homelessness, according to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Fox 10 investigator Justin Lum joins us live with a preview of tonight's report. This is a complicated issue.
Yeah, John, Christina, as you know, we have been covering this massive Medicaid fraud here in Arizona for 2 years now as the state suspended hundreds of behavioral health providers over allegations of fraud. Well, that crackdown has led to many people still displaced on the streets as sober living homes shut down across the valley. Now, here's what we're learning tonight. Over time, we've met so many people who say they were shuffled in and out of homes before being left on the streets. This scheme we've reported on involving targeting vulnerable people with addictions to bill access for services never provided. A vast majority of these people are Native American, and the American Indian Health Plan was the program used to defraud the state for more than $2 billion. We spoke with one man recently who says he stayed in a Mesa condo complex we have reported on previously for unlicensed sober living units where police responded almost every day in 2023 for reports of assaults and drug activity.
Some house manager would even tell you, hey, come in and we'll give you $100 a day.
They provide alcohol and drugs?
They would, yeah.
And tonight, we will show you one of these hot spots in the area where advocates for victims of this crisis are there weekly to provide resources. The full report coming up at 9. I'm Fox 10 investigator Justin Lum.